It is time for us to once again talk about, like, I have my notebook here ready to talk about the stuff that I've watched in the first half of the year, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the anime. And excuse me for feeling a bit off or seeming to talk slower. It is because I am summoning every ounce of energy left to actually speak, because I do want to talk about this and I like to talk about this, even though I am dying. Like, I am dying. I need, like, glacial weather to feel okay again. So let's just. Apparently, there's a heat wave throughout Europe, not just in the Mediterranean where I live. So that's lovely. I suppose I'm not the only one suffering this time around, but let's get past that and talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff that I watched, because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. Some of it is controversial, some of it is underrated gems, and some of it is opinions that I'm going to get some heat for, because there's always some of those considering how much stuff I actually watch. This time, let's actually talk about the anime first, because I don't have a lot to say on that count this time around, shockingly, because it's just going to be like rehashed opinions. Okay, as far as the negatives are concerned, the only thing that I really have to say is Frieren, because I kept watching it and I honestly don't know why I keep watching it. I suppose I like the aesthetics of it because I really like the wit animation style. So, like, it's pretty to look at, but I got bored of watching it weekly, so I just waited for the entire thing to come out, and then I like binged it, and that's usually a sign that I'm really not interested in anything that's happening, because if I can bother to wait, then I'm really not invested. I'm really not invested because I'm just not the type of person who can wait for the stuff that I love. More on that in a bit. Okay, so I just really do not care about any of the characters in this story, anything that's happening. I feel like it's becoming worse as it goes on, because the whole concept of non-existent stakes is, I suppose, it's attractive and appealing and cool in the beginning, but then as the story goes on, you're kind of like, I don't really care where they're going, what they're doing, and what's happening, because nothing matters. Which I know there's the army of people who are like, but that's the point, that the small things are significant and it's actually the little things that matter. And I'm just not that type of person. I'm just not that type of person. Okay, I had a miserable time with this. And you would be correct in assuming that there's no reason for me to watch it, considering how much I dislike it. But again, I am kind of a big sucker for beautiful anime, because there are so many that I love dearly that just don't have the budget of these high production anime. So sometimes I just like looking at pretty stuff. Okay, I mean, sue me. So that's it for Frida, and I don't think I have any other negative opinions as far as anime is concerned. As for the positive opinions, that's a little bit more interesting. Okay, first of all, there is a Gentle Noble's Vacation recommendation. This series is the most nonsensical gay isekai that I've ever watched, which is just not something that I ever watched. But again, one of my favorite voice actors, like a top 2 voice actor, I was like, I'm missing I'm missing his voice, literally. And I recently rewatched a series with him in it, so I was like, I need to see like what else he's doing, and just play anything that strikes my fancy. And I played this. It was so stupid and so silly, but I actually enjoyed every minute of it. Okay, because it was stupid and silly in a comforting way. I watched this every week, every Wednesday. I was actually genuinely looking forward to it every single Wednesday, and I don't even know how to recommend this. Okay, if you really like an isekai world where a guy gets transported to a universe that is so very gay, every single man in this universe, like, is head over heels for him, which is really not that strange for like the isekai storyline. I think that's a very popular thing, and that's usually why I don't consume any of it. But I don't know. I don't know, I enjoyed it. And it's light on the fantasy, so it's kind of fun to consume, I suppose. If there is a season 2, I kind of can't wait to watch it. So this was a weekly watch that I actually really looked forward to because I was like, let's just relax. Okay, with some silly shenanigans for like 20 minutes. Then the next anime that I want to talk about is Anne Shirley. I didn't know that this had come out last year, which is incredibly strange because it's beautiful and it's Anna Green Gables. How did I not hear about this? I didn't finish it as of filming this because I keep putting it off for some reason. But it's the only and the first and the only adaptation of all 3 books of Anne. And I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Okay, I consider Anne a trilogy. I don't really acknowledge anything past the 3rd book. So finding out that there's an anime adaptation of all 3 books, which I've never consumed in my life because just none of them adapt anything past the 1st book correctly, I was like ecstatic. Okay, it's got a strange anime style that honestly like sometimes feels borderline AI, but then you see kind of the background and how intentionally clunky it looks. So I was kind of like, actually, I hope it's not AI. I really do hope it's not AI. That said, okay, we've reached the main and the most important and significant part of this video, which is the fact that Witch Hat Atelier, the anime, finally came out. Okay, it debuted on my birthday, on my 25th birthday. I got 2 episodes of my absolute favorite thing in the world that I've not been able to shut up about for the past like year and a half, and that I've read exactly 4 times at this point. Okay, it was like everything. It was everything that you could possibly want out of an adaptation. Okay, as someone who was personally victimized by the Tokyo Ghoul adaptation, this was like a dream. Okay, it's not without its flaws that I will get to in a moment, but all things considered, it was painful to watch every week because with every passing minute, I realized that I was getting closer to not having any WeChat to look forward to on Mondays. And that day has come because the last episode debuted earlier this week, and that's just deeply upsetting to me. Deeply upsetting to me because it's sometimes unreal that like you can see your favorite thing, like in real time. This happened to me 3 years ago as well when we got 2 seasons of Bungo Stray Dogs in 1 year. And every week when I sat down to watch it, a part of your brain is sort of like, I can't believe like I'm watching this. Like it's a little surreal that this thing that I know so well, having read the manga, I'm now seeing play out before me. It's just a very strange feeling, I suppose, when you have so much anticipation for something and then while you're watching it, you're almost in disbelief that it's actually genuinely here and that you're witnessing it. This is how I felt with Witch Hat every single week. Because, like, again, I know that thing like frame for frame. Okay, every single episode, I knew exactly which frames were from the manga and which weren't. And they ended each episode exactly like where chapters leave off, and I knew exactly what they omitted and how they changed a certain line and what was said in the manga. I know it so well that it was a bit like seeing your dreams unfold in front of you. That said, there is one flaw I'd like to mention that was kind of like brought to my attention because I watched it with my parents who just don't watch anime, and that is that there's a lot of the noise, the whiny, halfway moaning stuff that they do for some reason with childish characters. Okay, they're all great voice actresses, but half the time, especially in the beginning with Coco, that was like a big complaint that my parents had. Like, why is she constantly, like making that noise? Why is she constantly so clumsy and stupid and producing a noise that sounds genuinely like constant whining? Don't even get me started on Tetia. Like every time she shows up, it feels like you need to lower the volume. And I was just sat there and like Witch Hat shockingly never felt like that to me. Like it's not necessarily an incorrect adaptation because there are the silly panels that Shirahama does. But Witch had just never felt like a loud story to me, you know, like something where it feels a bit more neurotic than you'd like it to be. Witch Hat is actually a very composed and calm story in my mind. And again, I've read it so many times. It just always felt like way more into the fantasy than the goofiness that anime can often lean into if you're unused to it. So I thought it was like a safe bet to get them to watch it with me, not just because I love it so much, but because again, it was never in my head stuck as something that's so chaotic and loud. And then watching it with them, I suddenly became aware of why I disliked it that much. It's again, I think it could be because I didn't expect it of the anime, which could be on me because all they did was like animate the silly panels from the manga, but also genuinely like, why do they keep making that noise? And I do have a personal complaint actually about Coco being so strangely incompetent and clumsy in the anime, which it's not a huge departure from her in the beginning, but specifically because they chose to like extend the Dada range test to an entire episode, which it isn't in the manga. Like it takes place very quickly in the manga. You just get a whole compilation of her actually being so clumsy and whiny and super childish, which was again the perception that they got of her. And it was difficult for me to explain that, like, actually, Coco in the manga is alarmingly mature sometimes, and it doesn't feel like a child and has like thoughts and opinions and lies and conceals her emotions in a way that's a bit more adult than you'd expect of a 12-year-old. I mean, obviously, there are the childish lines here and there, but on the whole, the kids in Witch Hat don't often feel like kids to me. Whereas in the anime, it was leaning very heavily into the kids stuff, if that makes any sense. And also in the manga, it feels a bit more evenly matched between like Kifuri and Coco being like co-protagonists, where you get an adult perspective on the stuff happening and a semi-childlike perspective on stuff happening. So I don't even know how to frame this complaint because it's nothing specific. And also, they lean far too much into the brush buddy stuff. I don't know if it's to extend the runtime or if they genuinely couldn't help themselves and had to animate brush buddy into everything, but it was unnecessary. Like, the whole point that I'm trying to make that I realized when watching it with someone who isn't used to anime is that I was under under the perception that this was like something that I could watch with them because in my head I view Witch Had the manga as a bit more adult and serious and less goofy than a lot of anime is. And the anime really, really leaned into the silly, goofy, childish stuff. Like, I'd get personally offended, okay, when it would present as a really childish story, I suppose is what I'm going for, because I just don't view it that way. Maybe it's having more of Kifuri's internal monologue, which they do keep for the anime. Like, this is what I mean. Like, the anime is extremely faithful. Like, a lot of the times, like, it's a shot for shot, beat for beat adaptation. But I still feel like they really tried hard to cater it primarily to children, with again the noises and the silliness and the volume of everything and the goofy silly panels that don't feel that prevalent in Shirahama's manga. So I wouldn't actually be upset. I wouldn't actually be upset if someone came up to me and said, like, oh, this is a really cute story for children that's silly, which you are very soon like taught not to expect of the manga when you read it. So I don't know how they will balance that in the future when the story gets like significantly and unceasingly like a little bit dark and depressing and not great for the characters involved and they don't get to act like children anymore. I wonder if it will be maybe more jarring in the anime. And I realize I've been talking for ages just about Witch Hat, but like, what did you expect? Like, this was anticipated by me for so long that like it's coming out my ears, the thoughts about it. And this sounds again like I have a lot of negative opinions about it. I don't. I don't. It was beautiful, wonderful, and I don't think I could have hoped for anything more well done and put together than this. You can tell they care for it so much. They constantly like integrate the manga panels and the manga drawings into the anime, and like for the finale of the season 1 they animated straight up like a shot from the manga, and they even made like the opening credits be like a comic book. I have nothing but praise for the anime, but I think watching it with someone who's again not used to this stuff in anime, I think I'm more liable to ignore the noises and the moaning and the whining because I am used to it, like pretty much everyone who watches anime. But watching it with someone who isn't used to it, I kind of noticed that their complaints were valid, but I did not thought of the manga in that way. It just was very different to how I imagined the girls, I suppose, because I guess it's also a bit of a contrast between like Agot, Risha, and Tetya and Coco, who like are like polar opposites in terms of their attitudes and behavior. But at the same time, I just, especially watching it again, because I watched most of it again. I don't think I watched the second half of it again, and I was very rudely interrupted. Okay. So, point being, choices were made to make it, I think, a way more child centric fantasy than I think the manga is, in tone in particular, and in like amping up the clumsy silliness. But again, that's, I cannot really fault them for that. It's their choice to have a target audience, and that's none of my business. And I still loved it dearly. I will watch it again. I downloaded it like immediately to my computer. Okay, it's beautiful, stunning, and they love and care for the work. So I cannot fault them for that. It's just that it's way more obvious when you watch it with someone who isn't who isn't used to the some of the weirder aspects of anime and voice acting. Which, on that note, I have to say something that's extremely controversial, and that's fine by me. Mind you, like English dubs, I'm against anything like in a language that it wasn't made in. I understand that there are like accessibility reasons, which is a complete ballpark of its own. But when you can, I think that you should consume stuff in the language that it was made in. The only exception are like childhood dubs in my own language of Disney films, and that's just because I find them funny. Okay, I don't think they're better, although a lot of the time they are funnier than their English versions. But that's just again my childhood nostalgia. I wouldn't like watch a new film in a dub if that makes any sense. The English dubs that I used to watch, I thought were good at the time, but then as soon as I watched them like in Japanese, I realized that they were just unnecessarily funny. Like I always thought that like some of the brevity and emotion was like removed in the English dubs, which I know is like a really common complaint. Like the emotion is completely off for so many scenes. Like the most jarring example was when I watched Angels of Death in English dub, and I thought it was hilarious. And I loved it so much for its comedic aspects. And then I watched it like years later in Japanese, and then I realized how actually deeply unsettling it is, and how like specifically Isaac Foster, who again is so funny in the English dub, was actually really creepy and unsettling as a character, because his voice actor did a great job in Japanese, and I didn't feel that way with the English dub like at all. It was such a contrast. Like I found the entire series way darker when I watched it in Japanese. But the one thing that tickles me is how the English dubbers, voice actors, when they're dubbing Japanese, like specifically Japanese series, not with like Western names, how they refuse to pronounce the Japanese names correctly. Like it's not that difficult to learn how to do. It sounds like a very American butchering of the names, which just takes me out so much, so much whenever I hear it, like on TikTok. We're talking about Witch Hat, though. I was getting there, okay? The dubs for Witch Hat are some of the stuff that everyone is praising it for because they have British accents, which I don't know why fantasy is like so connected with the British accent, but my god. A couple times, like my Crunchyroll, for whatever reason, like put it in English, and like I involuntarily listened to some of the English dub until I bothered to replace it with Japanese. And oh my god, it was awful. Like it was completely different. Like the characters felt completely different to me. Like I don't care how attractive you find the voice of Keithy with a British accent. It is, oh my god, it is so off for his character. It is so strange. Like it puts me, I cannot hear it, okay, without deeply cringing because it constantly comes up on Instagram Reels and on TikTok. They always use his English dub in particular because I don't know, I guess you find it attractive. Dub enjoyers, I guess you find it attractive. I cannot hear it. I cannot hear it without wanting to like crawl out of my skin. It just feels so wrong. There's this particular thing that like Natsuki Hanae, the voice actor of him in Japanese, does with Kifri because he has, I don't care if you just see him as Tanjiro, he has insane range and has had insane range like since Kaneki because he can like switch at the drop of a hat from silly goofy to like cold voice, which fits Kiefer like so well. I was wondering how I would feel about him as Kiefer. Like he's perfection. He was wonderfully casted, and I think I'm happy he finally gets to show off his range rather than constantly playing like the energetic, bubbly young characters. Okay, he has been like the CEO of this like voice switch since Kaneki, and Kiefer in English just it bothers me. Like it bothers me incredibly. Granted, I've only heard like a couple characters, including like Ace Tease and Coco. But ooh, it just, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And every time that like the episode played in English, I was like, absolutely not. Like absolutely not. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. So I suppose there are like, you know, better dubs and worse dubs in the world of dubbing. Again, as someone who used to watch English dubs for a little while, but I would encourage you. I would encourage you that like if you don't have a very specific reason for it to watch stuff in its original languages because that's how it was made and that's how it was intended and the emotions carried forward are the original emotions. Okay, so sometimes you have, and believe me, again from experience, you can have a completely different perception of an interaction or of a character or of the context of a scene based on how it was voice acted. And I've learned that the hard way, and I cannot not watch anime in Japanese anymore. It's just I can't. So again, you do you, but oh my god, I couldn't stand it. Like, please never show me a clip of British Keefy again because I feel like it's haunting me. I think the last category we should discuss is crime because, as I've mentioned like before, it's my main category. Okay, it's my main category, and there's like a lot to talk about in terms of crime. So like, let's talk about the other stuff. Okay, which I'm gonna try and be brief about because there's a lot that I have to talk about this time. I wrote down like a crap ton of stuff. So let's keep it brief. Okay, one semi-positive thing that we want to discuss. Okay, young Sherlock. Young Sherlock. This has apparently been the year of like Donald Finn. Bros and everything. He's having a great time since he left the travesty that was the Wheel of Time. And my cat keeps moving around in the background and it irks me. Again, I'm very easily pulled out of my thoughts when I'm speaking to myself. So, young Sherlock. It was I'm keeping it in the positive category, but it was clunky. The writing felt like writing rather than dialogue, like rather than natural conversation. Okay, I liked some of the joke, and like Moriarty, the character played by Donald Finn, was by far the best acted and most natural looking, feeling character. And the Chinese woman, whose name I don't remember because I watch so much stuff that I cannot remember names of characters unless they're like Sherlock, Moriarty, and like Mycroft Holmes. I liked her too, by the way. I think the two of them were like the highlights. But specifically the Holmes siblings, they felt so clunky and forced as personas. Like they were desperate to be the characters that we know and love, and in this desperation the writing feels strange. Okay, a lot of the times you're sat there and you're like, like I can tell they want this to be like a cool or funny line, but it just feels like a line. It doesn't feel organic, like in the slightest, which is strange because again, the Sherlock Holmes films are some of like in my house, some of our favorite films. Okay, we love them, especially Game of Shadows. Like I think we watch that like every year. I love that film. It is beautiful and it is the opposite of this, which is again the same director, the same writer. It feels the opposite, organic. It feels like these are real people playing off each other rather than people learning lines. And I don't know if it's the actor's fault or if it's the scriptwriters and directors' fault, but I'm inclined to actually believe like the latter because I love Max Irons. Like I've loved him since White Queen, and I know he can act. So his like stilted and strange behavior in this series, I blame entirely on the direction and on the lines given to him. Okay, so as for as for Harden, he kind of pulls it off, but I feel like it's majorly because he plays off other characters like the girl and Moriarty. I feel like it's mostly because he plays off them that he comes off as better than he is, and it's also perhaps because he's just lodged into my brain as Harden from the After series that I just cannot take him seriously half the time. That said, it was again like the premise was passable, it was enjoyable enough, it was pretty enough, and it was well acted enough that I did finish the season and I will watch season 2. But God, I feel like they need to improve either the writing or the delivery because it just half the time it just felt so clunky, and it's very difficult to describe when that happens why exactly that is, if it's the actor's fault or like the writer's fault, because so often I felt like the line was just super forced. So that's on the positive side. Let's get into the negatives. I have a lot of negatives like in this random category. Sorry, genuinely I didn't think I was rolling yet. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay. Now this one can ruffle feathers. I don't really care. Okay, I don't really care. I live in a Catholic country. Rise of Merlin. This is just a crime against writing. It's a crime against writing. Okay, you can write your religious manifestos any way you want. I think it's pretty accurate to the book in this regard. So accurate adaptation, I guess. This is so nauseatingly like appropriating a culture and legend in a way that's repulsive to me, but I am weak in the way that I hear Atlantis and like King Arthur and Merlin, and I will check it out. But like this was just it's like me picking and choosing like a legend. I'm going to use an example. Yes, obviously, because Christianity was present during the time of King Arthur. But I will make my point, hopefully, with what I say next. And that is like Christianity was also unfortunately brought to other parts of the world through conquest, such as any African place that still has Christianity. That's like me like taking a legend from there and making it so hideously my own religion and belief system and like deconstructing it so it presents my own beliefs in a way that like completely doesn't belong there. Like the prime crime of this story is making King Arthur's myth, or rather, like, its most magical Celtic druidic characters, like Taliesin and Merlin, into Christian missionaries, and I get upset just saying those words because, again, like King Arthur and Merlin and Celtic mythology and the Druids, and it's my favorite thing. Okay, apart from like Star Wars. This was just a pain to watch. It was a pain to watch, and it does have some pretty scenes, I suppose, and it doesn't have famous actors in it, so I suppose it's great for acting opportunities. But other than that, we didn't even bother to finish it. I watched this with my mother. We did not even bother to finish it. Okay, it was too insulting to watch. So people can enjoy and believe whatever the hell they want, but they should not be taking stuff that isn't theirs and making it this blatantly like theirs, basically. Next thing that's like a bit of a negative, but not completely. It's like closer to Young Sherlock in the middle ground, okay, is The Black Cauldron. I'd never watched this. It was one of the rare Disneys that like I'd never watched. And one thing that I have to say is that it's extremely pretty to look at. Like, it has that, it's my favorite thing about old Disney, where it actually looks like a drawing. Like, it actually looks like a drawing that's moving. I loved the aesthetic of the film and how it looks, how it was animated, everything. I loved it. But the story, the story and the characters were just paper thin. It gave nothing. Okay, it gave nothing, and I was just kind of sad about that because it was really pretty. There's not much else to say about this. It's kind of middle of the road. Like, it didn't personally offend me, but I wish it was better for how cool it looks. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make. Oh my god, then I will ruffle feathers with the next shoe, so let me like lock in for this, okay? Seeking Persephone. Seeking Persephone. Okay. Oh my god, this felt like having a brain aneurysm in the form of a series because it was like romantic, period drama, new Mr. Darcy. Please do not listen to the people who tell you that. Please don't, because each episode of this series felt like it was written by different people. Okay. Characterization is so inconsistent that it makes you laugh. There was, I think, a serious scene that was completely ruined by the previous episode and how the characters behaved in that episode, that I could no longer take them seriously, like, at all. It was the type of stupid that you kind of can't believe. So you just sit there and keep watching because you're like, I wonder what the hell they're going to do next. So unless you're in the mood for like a period drama comedy, I would skip this one. Okay, there isn't an ounce of sense in this entire series, and it looks kind of cool, and again, it has new actors, not famous actors, so like there was potential there. But I mean, I will spoil you, I suppose, but the characterization for the guy in particular was just, and logic in this series, like, it goes beyond, okay, suspension of disbelief. Like, this is fanfic level suspension of disbelief, where you're just supposed to be looking at the tropes presented to you, because please don't think about anything else or logistically consider some of the stuff happening or the implications of it. The character is like, again, yes, this like brooding but soft, damaged but kind person, the classic trope. There's this scene where they're like sleeping together in the same bed because of wolves outside their property. Please don't get me started on the nonsense of the wolves in this series. Like, I feel so stupid just remembering that plot point. But basically, they're like in their room together at night because she's scared of wolves, so she comes to his room for comfort. Please don't get me started on it. And specifically in this one episode, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and it's nowhere near the end of the series, so it's not like they're, already like peak romance, he just starts giggling giggling like a little girl. And it just completely ruined the characterization for me. And that doesn't happen again. Like, it was weirdly there in the middle of the series in this strange scene where it feels like a girl and her gay best friend. And then all of a sudden, we're supposed to go back to the brooding, tortured romance. I couldn't take it seriously. I mean, I couldn't take it seriously until that point, but this just broke the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I couldn't look at them without chuckling at that point. So, every episode, again, you could watch sort of as a standalone because it has little to nothing to do with the episode before. And please don't get me started on all the stupid contrivances and inconsistencies in this series, starting with the fact that this is, like, again, fanfic level of suspension of disbelief, starting with I never got a satisfactory enough reason for why this super wealthy man would take her as his wife and promise to give a buttload of money to her entire family. Like, I never got a satisfactory reason for that, and that's the entire like start of the premise. I kept waiting for like this grand reveal. It never came. It never came. And like, again, an absurd amount of money. I think if you remember that, like, Darcy had like 10,000 a year and he was like practically a millionaire. I think her family gets like over 100,000 pounds. Okay, like an astronomical amount of money that like didn't need to be that high. It just, in the beginning, you have to suspend your disbelief, but as it goes on, you realize that not even that is enough. You're gonna have to suspend your intelligence to be able to enjoy it. So. And then I kept seeing like all the reels marketing it as the next Mr. Darcy. Please don't insult Jane Austen that way. Please don't, because this is a fanfic, okay? And the bad kind of fanfic, because there are really good fanfics out there. So watch this if you want to have a laugh, but please just don't try and come into my comments and claim that this was a serious period romance. Because I will assume that there's no point in even arguing with you, because I don't think you can comprehend some of the things that other people comprehend. So have fun with it. Just please don't claim that it's serious in any way, shape, or form. And the last thing that I have to talk about, rather, not even the last thing. Oh, it's not even the last. God, this video is going to be long. Let's go over this one quickly because I know people don't want to be spoiled. Okay. The Legend of Aang. Yes, I watched the film. I watched the film because, like, several reasons. I stream a lot of the stuff that I watch because I simply do not have access to the streaming platforms, like, in America. And I'm not paying for a VPN. It's not a thing where I live. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm in the, like, back end of Europe. Like, I do not have, nor do I want to pay for 1,000 streaming services, first of all. So I was like always going to stream it. I maybe would have wanted to watch it in theaters if they released it in theaters, but that's not happening either. So I don't know what to tell you. The only people who deserve praise for this project are the animators. And it is them that I feel bad for, because I would have gone to watch this on the big screen simply for the animation. Okay, like, it is beautiful. They put their all into this, and they're the only people in relation to this film who deserve the praise for it. Everyone else, I never want to hear of again. Okay, like, I am not the number one fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, like, far from it, but I find a lot of comfort in rewatching that series every now and then because it's just fun in that way. I like rewatching it, okay, and I've grown actually really fond of it through the years, but I am not its biggest fan. I actually have a lot of problems with it, like a lot of problems with it, and with particular characters and decisions made by the really, really petty writers of it, who handled all future future projects like The Legend of Aang and Korra. I think they're petty, childish men. Okay, I'm so sorry. I really do. The way that they're beefing with, like, young girls over ships is pathetic, frankly. And this entire film felt like a really petty beef with shippers, because there wasn't any other point to this film. Like, it doesn't change anything significantly. It doesn't add to any of the characters. Arguably not even Aang, who is the only character that something is happening for in this film. The other characters just feel like set dressing and like decorations. They feel there. Okay, they're completely unimportant and not developed. So I think the stills of them looking like really attractive people in their 20s is all you're going to get from these characters in this film. So praise the animators. I love the animators. The score, it was really nostalgic. It was fun. It was great to hear it. Pointless. Like it so doesn't need to exist that I can't even talk about it anymore. Okay, I really can't. So I suppose if you want to talk spoilers about it, you could talk to me in the comments under a tag, but I can't even speak about it. It was just such a non-entity of a film that I'm really sorry the animators were really good and they're not even going to get the joy of seeing their work on a big screen. Like, I wish I hired worse animators, actually, because then it will match the story or the lack thereof. Oh god, speaking of a non-entity of a film, The Mandalorian and Grogu. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. I don't want to talk about this for too long because I feel like an approaching headache as soon as I think about this film, okay? I actually disagree with people who say that it's not the worst Star Wars, because I have never in my life been this bored at a Star Wars film, like, ever, okay? It's still a reaction. It still engages you when you're enraged, like we all were at the sequels. But this feels like an offensive waste of time, okay? Like, it offensively wants to take 2.5 hours of your life, and it's not even going to make you feel anything. It's not going to upset you, except because of the fact that you wasted your time sitting there watching it, okay? I went because the tickets were super cheap with, like, my in-person Star Wars group. I went because the tickets were cheap and I wanted to hang out a little bit. I did not think, okay, that I would be this mind-numbingly bored at a Star Wars film. The first Star Wars film in theaters since The Abomination that came out in 2019. I pulled out my phone. I have never in my entire life pulled out my phone in the movie theater, like, ever. We went to, like, a late night showing. I was contemplating leaving, walking out of the film in its third act, okay, because of how bored I was. I could not handle another meaningless fight scene for my life, okay? I could not. I actually felt like I was feeling like seconds of my life tick by. I could have, like, stared at a wall for 2 hours and it would be more productive than sitting there and watching this absolute slop of a project. Okay? It was genuinely offensively boring and meaningless, with no stakes, no sense, no meaning or feeling behind anything. Okay? And something worth noting, I am not a Mandalorian fan. I watched like 3 episodes of season 1, was again bored out of my mind, and I never watched anything else, but I am aware of all of it, and I think I watched like the Luke Skywalker scene when it came out, but like I know exactly what happened through the years because I watched Star Wars YouTubers, so I, like, again, I know stuff even that I didn't watch. I have nothing good to say about this. Nothing. Okay, because aside from the fact that, like, the main two have no emotion or significance whatsoever, they just feel like they're going, like, from spot A to spot B the entire time, okay? Grogu is just worthless. He is just a puppet. Okay, it's like, I don't know, amusing like a child aged 2. Okay, with a moving puppet that makes cute noises. The Mandalorian is a non-character. It's like he doesn't have a personality, and it shows through the fact that the main actor doesn't even want to be on set anymore, so they have to come up with hilarious ways to never have him take off his helmet, even when it kind of makes sense to do so. It feels like he genuinely recorded his lines, like, on his voice memos and sent it over to Disney 2 days before the premiere. And the rest is pointless, worthless, meaningless brawls between CGI creatures. Okay. It feels like you're just sat there and you're losing brain cells watching it. That's literally how it felt the entire time I was sitting there. Okay. And please don't get me started on the hut on the hut with an American accent. Please don't get me started on it. It was oh my god, I don't even know where to start. I think by the third time he said, "I'm not like my father," I wanted to kill myself. I actually wanted to kill myself. Again, my favorite thing about Star Wars is the Clone Wars, and I never sat there and thought to myself, you know what we're missing? More of the huts. This was just offensive. That's my whole point. It was just offensive. The entire film felt like it didn't want to exist, like none of the people wanted to be there. Like the CGI people were the only ones actually putting in any work, and after like the second fight scene between entities with no stakes involved, it was like, okay, you're losing interest, I'm losing interest, we're all losing interest. It just, I don't know how to explain it other than just reiterating the thing that I think about books as well, and that is that no reaction is worse than a bad reaction. As they all say, like, apathy is death. Okay, genuinely, because at least the sequels upset us and they launched YouTube careers and discussions, and you can actually talk about the experience of going to see the sequels, even the rise of Palpatine. But this is just, it's almost non-existent. Even though you sat there and watched it for 2.5 hours, it feels like some sort of hellish limbo in terms of films. Okay, the only thing you can talk about is how there is nothing to talk about. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. So let's go into crime, because I'm getting a headache just talking about this. Let's talk about the negatives in terms of crime, so I can end on a high note, I suppose. I don't really do that, so let's end on a high note. Okay. Runaway, which was like the latest. No, not the latest at this point. The one that came around New Year's. There's always a Harlan Coben crime series coming out on Netflix around New Year's, and he has this pattern where it's actually one of the better crime series you've ever watched, or like one of the worst that you've ever watched. Okay, Runaway was one of the worst. It was one of the worst. It commits just so many of the pitfalls when creating a crime series, where there's so many nonsense and bullshit explanations for motivations just to create tension or mystery that you just sat there like, you couldn't write it any other way, really? Like, really? It actually caused like somewhat of a discussion in my house, because me and my dad like hated it and my mother actually quite liked it, so we had a very non-polite discussion about it. But oh my god, I hated it. I hated it. It was I watched so much crime again that I can like distinguish between, this was created solely with the vibes in mind, like I want this to happen and I'll explain it later, and I know how this ends, so I'm going to build up to it properly. This was definitely the former. Like, good grief, I don't even want to talk about it for too long, which is kind of a pattern actually with the negatives that I want to talk about this time around. Let's see if I have an opinion about something. There's 2 other crime series. Okay, I think they're less offensive, or rather 3. Okay, we have The Secrets, I think that's called, of Kirkley Hall. I watched this primarily because of the actors in it. Okay, like Douglas Henshaw, you have Olivia Cooke. Great actors all around. And it was like a spooky mystery kind of, but it also kind of insults your intelligence actually by not answering some of the primary questions set up in the series. It also felt like a colossal waste of time, but luckily the vibes sort of salvaged this one, I suppose. And then there's Mayday, which also has some surprisingly good actors involved in it, but it like the greatest crime, pun intended, a series of this genre can commit is not answering any of the most important questions that it poses. Okay, you can shove up your ass any crime series or mystery or speculative series that refuses to answer the questions of its own premise, okay? Because it is insulting to come up with a mystery and then not bother to answer it, not bother to resolve it, okay? They always pull out of their ass the excuse that, but maybe I want the viewers to decide for themselves. Then why bother writing the story? Why waste my time with the story if you want me to write the ending for it? Okay, that's not how that works. I'm afraid that's not how storytelling works. It's very cheap and lazy and retarded, frankly. So there was like a perfectly set up way for this series to end, and it just doesn't do it. Like the credits rolled and we were sitting here and genuinely wondering like what happened. I feel like 3 scenes are missing from the end of this. Also great acting, especially from the younger cast. It was excellent, but and I like the vibes again, like sort of the countryside aesthetic, but it's upsetting. It's upsetting how uninterested this is in its own in its own story, considering that it refuses to resolve some of the major stuff that it set up. And then the last thing is Inheritance, which was like this god awful film with like Simon Pegg and Lily Collins and Chase Crawford, is that his name, from Gossip Girl, and other actors. We were, I guess, a little desperate. We didn't have anything else to watch, but this also requires like quite a bit of suspension of disbelief for everything to work. And then it just spits in your face when you get to the third act. I don't know what else to say about this. Just don't watch it, basically. Let's talk about the positive stuff. Finally. Finally. Let's talk about the positive stuff. Okay. The first thing we have to talk is my rewatch of Prime Suspect. Okay. On that note, not just of Prime Suspect, of Wire in the Blood, okay? We rewatched both of these this year because I got the DVDs for them. I got the DVDs for Wire in the Blood like at the end of the year, but shockingly, considering that these are 2 of like the darkest crime series that like I think were ever made. They're like dark in a realistic sense. Like it genuinely feels like you're watching like a real psychologist or a real detective at work. I think Prime Suspect in particular was like famed for its almost documentary like nature because it worked like with an actual female detective, and it genuinely feels like a documentary. You forget that they're actors. Like Helen Mirren doesn't feel like an actress here. She feels genuinely like a DCI. But we rewatched both of these this year, and like again, considering how dark and brutally realistic they are, they're some of the best like television and acting ever like put to screen. Ever. Okay. Like the characters of Jane Tennison and Tony Hill feel so real that like I think of them as people rather than characters. So like both of these, like I would, if you can handle the subject matter, I would like so highly recommend these that it's not even funny. Okay, like you're going to watch them and get like a whole new set of standards for what like crime and mystery psychological stuff is supposed to look like. Okay, I can rewatch Tony Hill like 1,700 times. I'm not going to do that with Prime Suspect because it's on a whole other level of realism that you're not really in the mood for very often. But both of them are like a master class at acting and character writing that I think like so many other series should aspire to. Like I don't even know how to praise this enough. Okay, so in case you need like an encouragement to watch them, please watch them. Like you're going to be thanking yourself, and then you're going to be kind of depressed at this like the state of things when you watch other series. Then the next thing that I'm going to have to praise is actually also a Val McDermid, done by the same production company that like Robson Green had and that made Wire in the Blood, which is A Place of Execution, which is like a 3-episode mini-series with also like a stacked cast. Okay, I've never heard of this. I'd never heard of this before, which is super rare considering how much crime we watch, but I think I checked under Val McDermid to see like if there are any other adaptations besides Wire in the Blood, and a new one is coming out I think this year or like next year. I'm watching that immediately. This was the only one of her adaptations that we'd never watched, and we watched it twice. It was excellent. It was excellent, and its like final message is a really like impactful one, and I would highly recommend it. I'm not going to say anything else because specifically with a mini series, I think it's important to enjoy it to its fullest and not be spoiled like at all in terms of its ending. So highly recommend this one. Then we have the reboot of Mrlja, which I did not have high expectations for. Me and my mother watched it. We were like, we don't like any of these people. Like the main actress that plays his wife, actually the only actor I think that I knew from this series. And we super didn't like the first arc. That we almost stopped watching it. But then another day we were like, I mean, let's keep watching it. We have nothing else currently going, so let's watch this. It floored us. Okay, it was super well done. Well done. Cass Brecker is in the last chunk of this series, so like Freddie Carter, if you need that little push to watch it, he's excellent. But I mean, he is excellent in everything. So this like impressed us so much. And the one thing that like crime series are lacking in is good partnerships and like good relationships between a detective and their spouse. Like that's just something that never seems to be well written in crime series. That's the thing that impressed us here. Okay, because Mrlja and his wife are actually a beautiful, working, stable partnership, and you can tell why they work so well together. Okay, because they support each other, they listen to each other, they talk about stuff rather than just ignoring each other half the time, and they feel like a genuine equal beautiful partnership, and that was so lovely to see. It was beautiful. Okay, then when he had a problem, he actually spoke to his wife about it, and she didn't just dismiss it. They talked about it, they discussed it, they worked so well together at diffusing a situation in the last episode. Like 10 out of 10 for the relationship. Okay, the mysteries themselves, I mean, they're nothing to write home about, but this was made by the characters and by the camaraderie, and Mrlja as a character is just really well built here and really interested in well written character, okay, with flaws but also with conviction and beliefs and moral goodness, which we really love in detectives because they're already extremely depressing series, so you need your main character to be, like morally interesting in a good way, not in a bad way. And again, a series that started off as something that I definitely would have skipped. So happy we stuck with it because it's excellent, and I cannot wait for season 2. I would highly recommend it if you're thinking of giving it a try, but it didn't look like much. It's great. Try it out. I'm so excited to talk about the rest because I love it so much, but I'm getting a little bit tired from talking. So we're gonna try and paint the picture. Okay, The Capture, which is the series with Holiday Granger, who's like the love of my life in terms of actresses. I love her so much. If I see she's in something, I will likely as not watch it. Okay, if it interests me at all. I love her. This series is really heavy on the tech stuff because it deals with cybersecurity and again deep fakes. That's why it's called The Capture, because it's about the concept of correction, which is the doctoring of security footage for one reason or another. And season 3 also kind of in the beginning made us hesitate because the season 2 finale was super impactful, and the build-up was insane for that. You were kind of why do you need a season 3? Oh, I loved season 3. I loved it so much. I would love to have an unlimited amount of this series, but at the same time I do like where they left it off, and if they never do anything else with it, I think I will be happy because it's excellent, and it's astounding how they can make me care about a character in such a short amount of time. I won't spoil that either, but it's also stacked with actors, okay, that are all just so excellent. This series was wonderful, and it's disturbingly relevant in terms of deep fakes and trusting what you see, so, and the manipulation of evidence and news and sources of information. So give it a watch. Give it a watch because it's genuinely a masterclass. I loved it. I loved it dearly. Then we have Safe. That's what the series is called. Which, like, I feel like all of these are like genuinely like examples of why the UK has such good actors, because Jesus Christ. David Morrissey, I think, is his name, and like the leading actress from Crow Girl and from the first episode of Mrlja, they like go to town in this series to remind you of the actor's ability to just transform into people they're not. Okay, this was genuinely hilarious how well acted it was. You genuinely feel like these are real people with every single like voice break that happens. My god, I loved the build up for this. This was just a really well done series. I kind of wish it was a standalone, because I think some of the characters are going to be a little bit clunky in season 2, but like, Jesus Christ, was this so well done. It was a surprise because I don't think it's that well rated. Not many people watched it, but genuinely like a masterclass in acting if you want to watch it. It's a bit lower on the crime and higher on the psychological impact of this situation. Or rather, no, that was gone. That was gone. Safe is the Harlan Coben with Dexter and with Mary from Sherlock. The one word series I completely replaced. Okay, so basically, Safe is the Harlan Coben with Dexter, which was like a good Harlan Coben, in my opinion, at least. I really liked the psychology, and I really liked the reveal, even though obviously I predicted it, because you can't watch as much crime as I do and just not be able to predict it almost every single time. But it was great. I actually loved it. It was one of the better Harlan Cobens, in my opinion. And then the last crime that we've got is Down Cemetery Road, which is Ruth Wilson and Emma Thompson. Emma Thompson plays like a bitch in this. Let's be very real, like an old cantankerous cow. But I loved this series, even though I also didn't expect to. It has a very different tone compared to what I usually watch, and it's a little bit more leaning into like spy conspiracy stuff rather than crime. But I really enjoyed it. They play very well off each other, like it has to be said. And I mean, these are all like just fantastic actors. I have nothing bad to say about it. Like Ruth Wilson is gonna carry almost anything that she's in. So I mean, it was great. It was a great series. I'd surprisingly recommend it because I really had my doubts about it in the beginning, in the first like 2 episodes, definitely. And then we have like stuff that isn't crime. So in terms of stuff that isn't crime, okay, we just have 2. We have The Other Bennett Sister. We watched this as it was coming out. I knew about the book like for years. I knew about the book. And in the beginning, I also wasn't sure about this. They were super short episodes. I didn't like the characterization. I didn't like how like all the characters from Bride and Prejudice had to be awful in order for this to work. But it grew on me. Like by episode like 4, I was invested. I couldn't wait for it to come out every week, and I was like, why don't we get period dramas like this more often? Like it was beautiful, wonderfully acted. The romance was stunning. It was actually like everything I wanted Seeking Persephone to be. Oh, I loved this. I can't wait to watch it again. Actually, so much. And I think it was necessary to present the Bennett sisters and the entire events of Pride and Prejudice in a different light, because I think it really benefited from it. Like this series makes the characters of like Mary and Mr. Collins really layered and complex, and it even adds depth like to their awful mother, okay, to the awful Mrs. Bennet. It just decides to tackle characters not really well portrayed in Pride and Prejudice and like give them their own story with depth and meaning and significance. And I loved this series in the end. Like I loved it so much, and it's beautiful to look at. I can't wait for the Christmas special. I would like highly recommend this. And if you think that it's sort of like a butchered retelling of Pride and Prejudice, like I did, actually give it a chance for its own thing, because I don't think it's trying to be Pride and Prejudice. I definitely think it's trying to be something different. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think from another perspective, you could view a lot of the characters in Jane Austen in a negative light when you're not looking at it through their perspective. I can see that my battery's empty, so I'll just wrap this up by saying that we watched Widow's Bay every week. We had our doubts about it because as soon as I saw the tags, comedy and horror, I didn't know how the hell that could work. It can work. It can work. Okay. It's my new favorite genre because you expect horror and jump scares and chase scenes and like scary stuff. And then you're just going to die laughing. You're going to pass out laughing when there's a creepy old lady haunting the main character and he just throws her off the chair in the stupidest way that you can imagine. There's this episode where he's upset and he's struggling with a painting and it just falls on him and pins him to the ground. It's so stupid. It is so stupid in the best way possible, okay? If you think the concept of horror comedy sounds strange but intrigues you, believe me, you should check it out because my god, it is a gem. It is a gem. It just made me so happy to watch it every week because you didn't know what kind of nonsense you'd be in for, okay? And I cannot wait for season 2. I need 7 more seasons of this, respectfully, okay? We primarily watched this because of Matthew Rhys. Like, he's also one of those actors who's like good in everything that he's ever done. So watch it. Watch it. It's comedy gold. It's genuinely, I wish all horror was like this because then I'd actually kind of watch it. That's it. Okay, that's it for the video. Now, before my phone dies, I will bid you adieu. And God, I talked for long. Okay, I think I covered everything for the most part. I could have yapped like for another 3 hours probably about a few of these, but I tried not to. And no strong opinions like last year. Actually, I had quite a bit of strong opinions last year. Well, I mean, you could consider some of the opinions here strong, but not if you know me. These weren't that strong opinions. These were like lukewarm. So, what have you watched in the first half of 2026? Have you watched any of the stuff that I talked about? Did you perchance have the opposite opinion to me, which I would not be surprised by in the slightest? And I would not judge you for any opinions except maybe like liking Seeking Persephone and Mandalorian and Grogu. I think those are the only 2 that I would genuinely judge you for and think less of you for because it just felt offensive to me. But anyway, and offensive to intelligence in general. But I will see you in the next video is what I'm getting at.